evening and welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Everett Weber Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something that fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195 Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers that you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed, 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You got a question or a comment perhaps? Well, maybe you can get a pencil, a piece of paper, write it down so that when you're getting on the show, you're well organized and you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards. Again, thank you all for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. Tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Rebel. Good evening to the listening and viewing audiences. Good evening to my fellow panelists. I would like to take this opportunity to say good evening to Pam and Anne, as well as Mr. Martin there in St. Thomas, my husband in the UK, and all the people who are listening to us in the United States of America and the rest of the world. Welcome.
Conrad Naya Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. To everyone in tune to this program, I'd like to especially point out my friends there on the construction site, which I work today, tune into the program. Good evening to you guys. All my friends in Connecticut who's always there, special good evening to you guys also. Webo, I'm happy to be here again. Not sure what you have for us this evening, but I'm ready to indulge in anything that you put on the table. So again, thanks.
Conrad Naya Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. We'll be back right after this.
Tiles and more tiles. Builders Paradise is the largest supplier of tiles. Tiles from as little as $3.95. Tile cement, 50-pound bag from as little as $37.44. And oh, don't forget to check out their Saturday sale for even better discounts. Visit them today at C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to the people who regularly listen to us via the internet. Those people especially from St. Kitts and our blessed, beloved people in Nevis. And of course, those of the Caribbean Basin. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the world. Those who are looking at us on Facebook, and again, hearing us via the old system, the internet. Good evening, Webo.
Would you like to lead off, Edric?
Well, of course, I, as a cricketer, I sometimes like to face the first ball. Thus, we have another problem, or the continuing problem, and there is another death occurred in St. Kitts based on information coming through the mic of Vaughan Radio, or via Vaughan Radio. And I'm not sure if we would be able to get our hands to harness this problem, hands-on to harness this problem with reference to the myriad of shootings. But I always said that there are four institutions: home, school, employment, employer, or work, as the case might be, and the church. And those four institutions have played a massive role in the past with reference to guidance and the upbringing of our people in our various communities. We're still doing a good job relatively, but at the same time, something has happened, and thus there are a few out there who feel to be misguided and continue to be misguided. As a result, we've got this problem, and it seems to go on unabated. And last week, as I mentioned, that the leaders, our leaders, the Prime Minister especially, the Premier also, must step up to the plate and let's get some action. Because in my view, these people who are doing what they're doing, I believe they feel that they can always commit these heinous crimes without being punished. And as a result, I call again upon the leadership to mention and ultimately think seriously of bringing back the death penalty. It's still on the books, and I think it would be a deterrent, because there are people who would think twice, knowing that they're going to do something like this, to kill someone, and if they're caught, they too would be eliminated. And I am fully convinced, because we all are human beings, and we do get angry at certain people who anger us for whatever reason. And I'm saying that we have to think twice, thrice, and more than that, before we decide to take the life of another human being. If it is, of course, in self-defense, it's a different matter. But based on what's going on, seemingly, it's a grudge. And with these people who are so misguided, they are operating with impunity. And because there is no punishment, also because they feel that they may not be caught, they will continue to do what they're doing. And I feel that if the Prime Minister and Premier and other leaders in our community step up to the plate and begin to agitate heavy statement, we are going to come after you with all we have, and we're not going to let up. And I'm certain those who are on death row, including those who are planning to kill people, would think again before something like this occurs. Last week, of course, we had a good discussion on the economy and employment in certain areas, and I listened to Dr. Bartlett with reference to some of the lawyers and leaders, some who have sent to the highest positions, and they may not be economists. But I would say that economics begin right at home. And we started at home, and those people who have vied and ultimately arrived at the highest levels with reference to governance in our communities, in our community, in our nation, they got the aptitude. And economics is not that difficult to study. Samuelson, one of my textbooks, and the information is right there with reference to the size of the economy, productivity, population growth, births, how to in fact bring about capital formation, and making the comparisons. And I'm saying to you, even though some people might say, oh, we need economists, I think the Honorable Van Zandvoort had studied economics. And I believe or Prime Minister Mr. Martin is an economist. And there are quite a number of economists here. But we have a small economy. What does it take really to get things rolling? Things are rolling. And I would say there are people who have put things in place. And for the past 3 Tuesdays, I had on my list even the trucking industry that is beginning to bear fruits, because I've recognized that a lot of our raw material coming from the mountain that I've spoken of in the past, beginning to be used as exports. The very first Tuesday when we got back on the year, I had it at the top of my list to mention about the roaring trucks that are operating in our community. And that trucking industry is beginning to expand, and thus work is available. I understood the Minister Alexis Jeffers mentioned that we've got exports of that raw material going to St. Martin and some going as far away as Guyana. So it tells you that we've got things going, and hence we have an economy which would be expanded. And it takes just some time for them to get hold of what they should get hold of to, in fact, energize our economy, broaden our economy, and thus bring about full employment in our community. Well, I got more to say, but I wouldn't hug the mic. Last week, you've brought to the fore an issue that gave me quite a spell in batting, and thus, when certain things were mentioned, I felt I can't hug the mic anymore, let other people speak. And hence, I never talked about the economy and economics. And some people said they're not, those, some were elected and not so bright, but one of the brightest men in the world is the Honorable Mark Brantley. And it wouldn't take him much time for him to figure out some of the fundamentals of economics with reference to our small economy. Well, I would leave it there for now.
Naya.
Well, as it relates to crime, we see what is going on continue to happen. You know, this show is talk that get results. And sometimes I'm bombarded out there saying that we just talk, and nothing happens. But Webo, is one thing we must do is continue to talk. Because what I realized recently, Webo, after a death, murder, people don't talk about it 2 days after. We become so accustomed to it, like it is becoming the norm. And we either afraid to talk about it, because I always tend to pick people's mouth on these issues, and it's a one-sentence response, mostly, especially in these days, as if they're afraid to say, because somebody is going to say they say, and it might reach back to the criminal. You know, that is when the criminal got the place locked down, Webo. And I think they got it locked down at this point in time because we see a lot of things happening, and even potential witnesses is being put under the microscope as it relates to their safety. You know, court is pending, and witnesses and so forth. We see that type of thing, and if it's not happening, it will be soon happening, Webo. We shall not seek to speak of these issues, these murder. We got to communicate amongst ourselves, because maybe some sort of revelation might come up when we speak about these issues. I mean, people, good people, business people who have contributed so much, you know, get shot down today, and we don't hear much more of them 2 days after. And I'm even surprised that we are talking about the murder in St. Kitts tonight. There was one last week, there was one the week before. There was 2 police officers, I understand, being killed recently in St. Kitts. That's very major. You know, just before the Culturama, we see a young potential, a guy of great potential, you know, well-liked, was also gunned down in Government Road. And as someone said to me, Naya, if this was before, because the murder took place I think the day before Culturama started, there wouldn't have been any Culturama again. That's how it used to impact on the society and the community back then. Now it's just like nothing at all, just how we pass an animal line in the road and we just say, well, I hope the health department come and pick it up. We are, of course, seems to simplify these things when there are major things happening as it relates to that. So I'm encouraging the people not to be fearful to talk about these things. Somewhere along the line, these talk might bear some fruits. At least if there's one thing we can do, is talk. But we can also act. We can also act within our individual self to, be that type of person that would improve the community in a general way. Too much time I see people act in certain way, which even they themselves are ashamed to, in the eyes of the public. But it's very far-reaching, and it's very personal in terms of the gain that comes from these things. I think that is not good moral practices in a sense. Too often I see it coming from high places, people in high places. But yes, we continue to deal with this murder, whether it's gang-related, whether it's a robbery. We are plagued by it. We are plagued by it. And just the other day, I was in town. I met a young guy. He obviously take people to the mountains, hiking and so forth. And he was telling me, man, I'm so worried because, this is the only thing I do, and soon the tourists is going to stop coming. He told me an incident that, there was some robbery, some tourist was robbed. Of course, I didn't hear about that. And I said, well, obviously, such things doesn't come out because, of course, we don't want to spoil the good name of Nevis. But, there are so much people who are worried about this. Everyday people who lives would be very much and directly affected by say, tourists. The tourist industry tend to shrink or suffers because of these social circumstances. So I am not sure that the death penalty and introducing the death penalty and make a threat that involves the death penalty would make a big difference, because of course we know there are various stages, as it relates to a criminal being caught, a criminal being charged, a criminal being tried, a criminal being convicted, and of course then he has the appeal court and the Privy Council. Once you reach to the Privy Council, I think the idea of hanging becomes, a little less real in a sense, because, England is not in for hanging. We always try to please England. We continue to please England in the name of the Queen and whoever. But so I'm not sure that the death penalty and the threat of the death penalty would combat these crimes. There are other areas that we need to work on, and we keep talking about it, and we keep talking about the various reasons why, we are not getting people arrested and charged, convicted. There are some very good lawyers out there who is investing in clearing a lot of things that is not so clear, in the interest of their clients. Many of them set these murderers free. I don't know how much that reflects integrity or morality, but it's the truth, and some have made a big living out of that. So what can I say about that? That's the way the law works. They have studied for a long time to get to that point in order to of course, practice what they call, practicing law. So there's a lot to do in that regards. But I always say, Webo, we got to start with the man in the mirror. And if we can all think along that line, maybe we can have a better society in the long run. But Webo, I think the criminal thing has totally gone out of hand. It looks to me like, and I asked a few questions, do you think that there is a serial killer around, or do you think there is many killers around? I mean, the two circumstances seems very worrying to me. It looks to me like there is people out there who's accepting money to kill people. I don't know how much money, but it looks like that is happening. I'm saying this without much certainty, but when you look at the kind of things that's taking place, you wonder if this is happening. As it relates to the economy, as Mr. Stanley commented on, I don't think economics and the understanding of economics is as simple as he put it. I studied economics and I have A level in economics, and I don't think I know much about economics at all. I haven't applied myself to those theory and those practices, really. Yes, I studied law, and I can see where a lawyer can be very much distant from the realities of the economy. And so, you know, I cannot totally agree with Mr. Stanley that, of course, we can all say it begins at home, you know, but on a higher level, that where it involves an island and the intricacy of people, business, money, investment, trade shows, promotions, marketing. It does entail a lot more, and sometimes, you know, higher learning of it would help, and of course it will, and we expect that too, because you know, I totally agree with Dr. Bartlett when she said last night, sometimes little groups can be formed of people who are more learning in those areas. Nothing is wrong with that. We are asking for betterment. We are asking for more efficiency. We are asking for, we are hoping to see the economy move some. Just the other night, I had a breeze through a book, I forget the name of it, but it reflects modern architecture in the Caribbean, and believe it or not, some very beautiful hotels growing up across the Caribbean. In St. Lucia, in Dominica, beautiful hotels, a little different from what we're accustomed to. And while I was going through the book, I asked, well, what's going on in Nevis? And before I finished the sentence, the individual said, I was just about to ask that. But maybe things are happening that I don't know. Maybe things are happening that I don't know. But maybe Stanley know a lot more what is happening. But we want to see it come out of the pipeline and into the public domain. And, of course, the benefits filter down to the everyday people. So the whole issue of economics is not so easy as it relates to the exportation of material to the neighboring islands. What a great gesture. I hope that it reap real benefit for us, not just in the short run, but let me say to be careful about the long run, because the resource is not plenty. The resource is not plenty, and as far as I check where we're at in terms of our development, be careful that the resource don't run out, you know. It's a matter of concern. It's a matter of concern because, of course, things are such in Nevis, and governments like to know that things are happening, and they like to know that the people are thinking that things are happening. And sometimes gestures are made and things are done without the consideration of the long-term impact and effect on the resource of the country. So one must be mindful of that, really. You know, the trucking industries as such, it hinges on other industries here. I could remember Mark Brantley make the comment that, you know, don't just get up and buy a truck. You know, don't just, you know, follow the crowd and buy a truck. Make sure that, you know, your whole economics is well placed, because it's not going to be every time that they're going to need a lot of truck on the island. When they were building the racetrack, there was a lot of trucks happening, and I think that in that era when he made that statement, and of course we are all anticipating a growth in the economy and more activity, and that's why people go out there and invest these huge money. I must say, of course, it's a degree of, it's an expression of confidence in the government. It's an expression of some hope too. I pray that, I mean, these hopes are realized and fulfilled as we go down the road. We will see what the impact of the new pay there at Uwali do for us. You know, some say it's going to totally put the airport out of service. Whatever, I'm just asking that we get a bigger bite of the tourism pie, because it's happening very close to us, and it's happening regionally, you know, regionally. I can almost say in every island we see a growth of one new hotel so far. Not here on island, not here in Nevis. And it's not all about hotel too, I suppose, you know. And again, as we mentioned, more recognition maybe should be given to local entrepreneurs and local investors. And we'll see how that works. But we are still, I suppose, trying to get the machine up and running. We had 5 years, and we're now, you know, in a more secure or better arrangement, I suppose, or it's been said. So the expectations are very high level. I'll say no more on that matter. Thank you.
Dr. Bartlett?
Yes, Rebo, we are here again discussing crime. I mean, that is a staple that doesn't ever leave the table, it seems. And it's unfortunate. Tonight before I left home, my husband said to me, you know, maybe you shouldn't say much because I know that you're upset. And Rebo, indeed I am upset. You know, it is troubling. I know I've said my pieces. Time and time again, I'm always talking about, you know, and sometimes I get in trouble because sometimes I'm labeled as a sexist. The few remarks I would like to make, I'm sure I'm going to offend somebody, and I want to apologize before I offend anybody because I don't like to offend people. But it's about time, and I keep saying the strategy is bad, you know, and some people get upset with me for saying that. It is true, men are from Mars. You know, women are from Venus. That's what has been said, you know. So we need to kind of, I think it's about time. We've been trying this Martian approach for a long time now, and we see where this is heading. It is not getting any better. The situation is getting worse. It's about time we probably try what you would call a Venusian. People from Venus would be Venusians, right? A Venusian approach. You know, we need a softer approach. I know I would have said, and I would have been critical when we got a advisor in national security who was from a jurisdiction that had a problem that was similar to us, or probably even worse. And I couldn't see any value in that, and I still to this day don't see any value in that. How can you help me out of a situation? It's like I'm a divorcee, or I'm going through a divorce, and the person who I look to for advice might have been divorced 4 times before. I'm like, you know, am I trying to save my marriage? Am I trying to, you know, make sure that I really mash it up? I do not see the value in that, because I looked at some statistics, and I know Stanley thinks that, you know, just doing put the death penalty. I mean, you could do that. I mean, that is easy to do. Reinstate the death penalty, you know, but how effective is that going to be? Because what we are seeing here is that most of the crimes would go unsolved. And this is not unique to St. Kitts and Nevis, mind you. This is worldwide. I mean, people are just not sane when they see things, because for them, you know, they're jeopardizing their life, and that is a real situation, you know. That's a reality that people face. That is a challenge that they face, you know, in other places too. But when I looked at the statistics in Jamaica, they had like 54% of the people for murders, they would, charge, but they only had a 7% conviction rate. I mean, and they're doing better than us. I don't get the value out of that. So I don't know that that is the way we need to go. And we have to be careful of the optics as well. Because when people see us looking at these jurisdictions that have not a good reputation as it relates to, how they handle things, the first thing that our people hear, and trust me, the people who we label as the bad boys, they're looking on too, and they're bright, because we have like a 98% literacy rate here. You think they can't figure out things as well? I don't know that throwing that in the mix, that is like adding timber to the fire, to bring somebody from a jurisdiction that that they have issues related to, how they manage their problems. And they've not been managing the problems well. And this is not to hit on Jamaica. This is just to say that I think that we need a different approach, and this is just to make my case that I think we need a different approach. We need a softer approach. I've been asking, and I'm wearing white tonight, and that is not coincidental. I don't usually come on here white because they say white don't look good on TV. But I, decide that, man, I want peace. I want a little peace in this little country because I love my country, and I've been asking for us to look at trying to reach people. We need to be able to broker some kind of, arrangements such that whomever are involved, that, because it seems as if, parties, who other parties are. I don't want to get in the middle of that because I don't understand the dynamics there myself. But what I'm trying to suggest is that we need to be able to call a truce, because one thing I know, it's not going to be easy. I'm not trying to suggest it's going to be easy. But if we don't do that, we are destined to, I think I heard a song when I was coming here that was played earlier, and it is just trying to suggest that, we're not going to end up in a good place if we continue like this, And I can't remember the lyrics exactly, and, because I'm getting a little emotional, I think. But I think we need to find some way of arriving at a truce. That is a woman's way of dealing with it, and I acknowledge that. And if we don't try that, and it is something unorthodox, it is something different from what has been tried before, but we recognize that what has been tried before is just not working. It is just exacerbating the problem. We are at a point now where we have 20 murders already, and this is only August. We still have a couple more months to go in this year. Now, the way it is being reported, in a population of 100,000, that's how they do it. So if we were to do it now, and we have about a population of about 50,000, it means that we are twice, we have to multiply it by 2. So we multiply the top and we have multiplied the bottom by 2. Stanley, you're the mathematician. So it means that we would be at like a 40% right now. 40, not 40%, but 40 per 100,000. And that puts us higher than most of the other countries, in our region. And we have to recognize that our sustenance, is tourism. Tourism is what drives this place. It's not that we making a little from the selling of the passport, but everybody else is selling passport. But this is a competitive business. Most of the people who work here are people who are working in the industry, related to tourism. And we have to recognize that if we don't solve this problem of crime, it's not only going to affect heads in beds, which is what Nevis is really, aiming for, but it's going to affect feet in the street as well. So we are now embarking on a new cruise pier in St. Kitts because we're expecting bigger boats. But if this crime continues to escalate like it is now, then it stands, to reason that we're going to jeopardize our position as it relates to in the marketplace. How many people will be able to attract here, whether heads in beds or feet in the street? And it means then that we are going to just exacerbate the problem, because you're going to have more people who are going to be poor, more people who are going to be, meeting hard times, and crime is going to increase. Not only the violent crime, the petty stealing is going to increase as well. White collar crime is likely to increase. So we have to be mindful of all these things, you know, and when we come to the table to discuss things, and I don't know that politicians could fix it. And I think they're pretty much at this stage now that they're acknowledging that they don't have, you know, the ability to fix it. Then I think that more people in different organizations would have to step up to the plate and not sit back and wait on the politicians to be the ones to initiate things. Because last week I heard there was a press conference. It's a political press conference about crime. And then they're saying, do not politicize crime. I'm like, are these people for real? If you're an individual in that organization and you're a politician, you don't want it to, you know, because you don't want to politicize crime. Don't you go to church? Couldn't you get a bunch of people in church, a group from church, be associated with them, and them come and have a press conference or, you know, do something? You're going to get a lot of politicians to come with you and then say it is not, you know, you're not politicizing crime. So I don't know where we're going with that. And they're the ones who are making the most noise. And it irritates me when I hear politicians making so much noise about crime. And, you know, the thing is, if we were to look at some of the policies that, you know, executed here, these are some of the things that probably would have brought us to this point. I'm not pointing any fingers, but I'm just saying if we would have done things a little differently, you know, years gone by, if we had taken a different, you know, strategy, a different approach, I don't care how many points you add to the plan, you know. I hear people talking about 7-point plan, 10-point plan. It has nothing to do with how many number of points. And as a matter of fact, I could give them 10 points. You know, you add to that and you still have a problem. You're still not going to solve it because it's not about points. It's about strategy, you know, and it's a hardline thing. It seems like people are digging in now, you know, and this is not the time for us to dig in. And I know how it is to deal with men, you know, and I know that at the end of it tonight, people are going to call me sexist, but that's how men are. Men do not forget, you know. And forgiveness is something that, you know, they're not being taught, you know. And so we have this measure of unforgiveness and you know, not... and this is plaguing us, and it's likely to continue to plague us until we start to soften the approach to things. And it's about time that we did, and it's starting with the optics. If I were in if you have an advisor and you're going the wrong route, change the advisor. And people are going to get upset with me, but I think it's time to change the advisor and get a different approach.
Edric, I reckon you might want to defend the men, because I see you smiling as Dr. Bartlett suggested that some people will get upset. I see you smiling, so it is just my own thinking that you want to defend the men. But before you do that, might I ask, Dr. Bartlett has stated what color she is wearing. By the way, you can also follow us on YouTube by going to YouTube, typing in our account Vaughn Radio, and stream live as well. So you can not only on Facebook, but also you can view us on YouTube, because not everybody has a Facebook account. Like, you know, I'm one of those persons, but you can follow on YouTube. You just go to the YouTube and you type in Vaughn Radio live, and then you follow us as well. So I was saying that Dr. Bartlett had mentioned that she was wearing white for a specific purpose, and maybe it's a good time for a light moment for tonight. Edric, what color are you wearing?
Well, of course, I am wearing white.
For the same purpose?
Just uniform.
That's Edric is dressed like his boss. Remember, Trump he's one of the president's men, and so. But that's another thing we can get into if we have time, the development with your boss. But Edric,
I listened to Pat and Naya, and I would say that although there is a quote, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, we all are from Earth. When we look at the planets, and for whatever reason, I do not think that using those two planets other than Earth would make any difference. Truly, crime is a practical matter, and you have to take a pragmatic approach to bring about solutions. In my view, let us take 1-on-1 or 1-to-1. I personally have no desire of killing someone. And I believe I could say it here about my two other colleagues, that they don't have any desire of killing anybody. So if you were to expand it from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and we get into the wider community, then it simply means that those
Edric, let me just
Right,
accommodate this caller
yes.
first. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes. Sorry. Let me move away from the radio. Crime is a spiritual matter. Pat is always on the ball. Pat, you got a lovely husband, you know, lucky fella. It's a spiritual thing. Christ has gone out of Christianity. We have to put Christ back in Christianity. We have to love thy neighbor. We have to find out how to make that practical, how to actually love thy neighbor as thyself. We have to get back to the roots. We have to not listen to the politicians. The priests are sitting back. The people themselves have to get together in their communities and sit down and pray together and sit down and solve the problem. I have a lot to say, but right now I'm just going to leave with those thoughts there. But it's a spiritual, the condition is a spiritual condition. Mankind has lost its spirituality all over the world. We're caught into materialism. We think that the politicians are going to solve problems. They can't solve any problems. Anywhere in the world, the conditions are escalating because mankind has lost his spirituality. He doesn't know what his purpose is for being on the planet. And we have to teach that from children. We have to teach that to teenagers. We have to have a system of spiritually educating everybody into why we are here as human beings. Not to make money, but to live in peace and harmony together. So everybody needs to take a look at the Sermon on the Mount and any other scripture, whatever religion you belong to, and look at the spiritual things that bring mankind together. And we have to, the politicians are not going to bring us together. We have to have community sessions where we get together in communities and sit down, discuss the issue in each parish. And then each parish can sit down and say, okay, right, this is what we need here. This is what we're going to do. And then you dictate to the politicians what you want in your community. We have a power. Mankind, this is why unions and these things, people try to stamp them out, because they realize that people have power once they got together. And this is why they took out Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. We have a, mankind, especially in the Western world, we have a problem with heroes. We're always looking for a leader. And once the leaders are taken out, we sit back and say, oh, not me, I can't do that again. But the idea is that once you have a group of people who can sit down, not one individual, but you have a committee or a group, assembly or something, come together and decide on behalf of the community. The community can choose these people. And they sit down and discuss, and they meet regularly with the community, discuss the needs, and go back and forth and consult on how the community can best go forward with the needs that they need in their area. That's the only way. And God has given us that power. 2,000 years ago, he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. The capacity is there. And he even stepped it up. He said, turn the other cheek. Tell us to turn the other cheek. 2,000 years ago. We don't even study that anymore. But we have the capacity. Pat just talked about forgiveness. We have the capacity to turn the other cheek. We have the capacity to do a lot of things that we've lost sight of. And we have to get back to our spirituality. The priests are not going to take us there because they're sitting back and watching. The politicians are not going to take us back there. The communities to get together themselves and make it happen. That's all for now.
Okay, thank you, Edric.
The caller, of course, brought the right dynamics into the conversation. I was going down the line and I had gotten up to 4 from myself, 2 of us or 3, and then I expanded it to 4 by mentioning that I do not think that any one of us here, including another would make 4, would have the desire to go out and kill anybody. The caller called and he brought again into the conversation, the getting together of members of the community. And he actually had the right approach in terms of angle. It's just that I am now saying the same thing that he's saying, or he said. But if we truly understand what the problem is, somebody out there feels for some reason they have that anger within them, that jealousy, enmity, however you want to put it, which would be devoid of love, charity, and the good things that the Bible spoke of. And because of that absence, people go out and do these heinous crimes by killing one another. And it's only a handful of people doing it. And although we want to blame the politicians, I just feel that they are the leaders. And as the caller mentioned, that we have to get the information and maybe lead them into what we have come up with from the community. The Governor General has just added powers to the army or the security forces for them to assist the police, the paramilitary force, the police, with reference to helping. So, to be honest, the people who are doing these things, they didn't come from Mars or Venus. They came from right here.
But Stanley, you're taking anything literally.
And I'm just saying, from this standpoint, we obviously have to face the reality that these are people that we all know. Well, why, for some reason, we cannot truly find them, get the evidence, and ultimately get them convicted. And I can ask Naya a personal question, Pat a personal question. How many people have angered you to the extent where you have ranted and raved, cursed, and maybe even entertained the thought that you would go after them to harm them? But in that harm, where do you stop? So let's back up to the beginning. The caller mentioned you turn the other cheek. How many people got the capacity to turn the other cheek? Very few. Because when we are angry, we act or react. And in that anger, we might do something that is quite stupid, or it might wind up becoming a heinous crime. And I'm going back to the one-on-one. I don't have the desire to kill anybody. And as I said earlier, my two colleagues don't think they have the desire to kill anybody. But people have done things to us, and we have gotten real ticked off. But you back up because you have to bring about a certain degree of calm and control. And hence, we exist with one another. We coexist, as the case might be. I am saying to those who are doing what they're doing out there, think twice, thrice, and begin to give the community a break. I am also saying that I want to live, and because I want to live, I will not try to take somebody else's life. But if you want to live, and I want to live, and everybody else wants to live, well, why are we going down that road? So those who truly want to take another person's life, the state has the responsibility to govern, and they've got the apparatus in place to, in fact, take their life away. So why are they holding back? You got the tools, use it.
You would like me to tell you why they're holding back?
Well, I know that it is predicated
it's a
on the vote.
rhetorical question. Oh, okay.
It's predicated on the vote. But at the same time, we know that...
But that's not what I was going to tell you, though.
I've stated the way I see it.
Right, but what I asked you was, is if you would like me to tell you...
Well, you go ahead, Webo. You tell the nation. Tell me also.
Why they're holding back. Because of something that Naya said when he was making his presentation, and he addressed you. And the specific point that you made in reference to the death penalty. Right? Naya would like to tell him again?
No, I remember he read off or stated the different hurdles.
Okay.
But we understand that because of due process.
But so that's why...
But
so in other words, you knew the answer, but you just wanted to be, as to use your term, you just wanted to be make a tactical move.
Well, however you want to put it, Webo.
No, I'm just...
Timothy McVeigh actually brought down the Morro building. So many people got killed. And due process took place. But ultimately, he got his just reward.
Ultimately. So they in other words, they held back until the process was completed.
You have to follow the process.
So that's your answer. The answer to the question, why are they holding back? Are you, to use Edric's, Edric's famous question, are you following me?
I am following, but I'm saying that there are some who have already reached the ultimate or the zenith, or the thing has run its course. So deal with them. Those who are on death row, implement the measure that the law gives. The law is still in the books. And if those who have run their course, in terms of the legal process, then execute based on what the law says. And those who are thinking of doing the same thing that those who have been executed would think twice before they do it.
But you accept that the question that you asked was answered?
No. I'm just saying to you, when they reach the point you have to execute, because now more or less said it goes to the Privy Council, and he accepted the fact that it stops there. And I'm saying to you,
but
it must go a little further.
Let's stop here and take this caller. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webo. Stanley, I'm agreeing with you 100%. They need to bring back the death penalty. Check the number of murders before they start the death penalty and the number of murders now. And another thing, we have the people outside of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean telling us how to run our country. In the meantime, Peter is saying, well, don't kill the monkeys eating off all the people's food. And then in Texas, they still have the death penalty, and some other states in America. But at the same time, they say, well, you know, we are brutal people if we have the death penalty in St. Kitts and Nevis. And if somebody knows they're going to kill somebody and they're going to stay alive, then they're going to do it. So drastic measures has to be taken. The death penalty has to come. Well, try then. Try the death penalty back and see if it will curb some of these murders, rather than let it run.
Caller, I could ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you think will happen if somebody learns that if they commit a crime, they likely will be caught? You think they're likely to commit it? They're likely to be caught because they have a lot of police.
Well, that will sort of distract too. That will sort of, keep them from committing the crime.
Okay, so you don't, are you not aware then that we have that scenario in place?
Yeah, I'm aware you have more policemen and whatever it is. And,
so then, in that case, then how? And in that case, then, how do you explain the rapid escalation of criminal activity against that backdrop?
How do you explain?
Yeah, how you explain that?
Well, the idea is it's sort of baffling because you have more.
It's baffling.
So more people out there, trying to protect us, and I hear, well, now the army going to be doing part of the police work, so hopefully that will help. But again, based on the murders, the amount of murders, they have to bring back the death penalty.
So, well, you see, I was moving in a logical sequence to get to the point that, do you believe then, or what makes you be able to convince me that if you bring back the death penalty and you said to them, well, the death penalty is there, so in case you commit a crime, you will be hanged. What you see what you see the point I'm making?
Well, the point I'm making to bring you on my side. What I want you to do is to check how many people were killed before the death penalty and how many have been killed now. There is no death penalty.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do your homework.
Okay.
And then come back to me next time, and then that should seal, my statement.
Yeah, but before I get back, before I do my homework, I want you to think on something while I'm doing my homework that Naya had pointed out a while ago. Before you can kill people, you have to have people to kill. Meaning, you have to catch them and then follow a certain procedure. So while I'm doing my homework and you're waiting to hear from me, you think about that too, okay?
Okay, I'll think of a way to catch these people then. That's what you want me to come up with.
Because, okay, good. Now, thanks much. Now, before you continue, Mr. Stanley, I wanted to follow up on a point, ask you a question on a point that Dr. Bartlett had made. But let's take a break first, and when we come back, we'll do that. This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Niall Liburd, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, I had mentioned a little earlier, in case you were not with us, if you're listening, you can also follow our stream live, not only on Facebook, but also on YouTube. So you go to your phone or your computer and you go on to the icon YouTube, and you type in Vaughn Radio, subscribe, follow us, and add your friends. Share the link. We're back after these.
Tiles, and more tiles. Builders Paradise is the largest supplier of tiles. Tiles from as little as $3.95. Tile cement, 50-pound bag from as little as $37.44. And oh, don't forget to check out their Saturday sale for even better discounts. Visit them today at C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
back on this episode of Talk That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Naya Liebert, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700, and you can follow our video stream live on your Facebook page. You get to our Facebook page and you link up and you got the stream live. Also, you can go to YouTube and type in Von Radio Live. Subscribe and then share the link with your friends. You'll see the passion that Edric W. Stanley makes his point with. For instance, this point, he's going to be passionate about it as well. Before we went to the break, Edric, I promised to ask you something in reference to a point that Dr. Bartlett was making. Let me get this first. Somebody wants to talk to us. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good night, Mr. Herbert.
Yes.
Good night to your panelists.
Good night.
And good night to the people of the Federation. Gentlemen, I'm listening to the conversation. An interesting one. But I have a few things that I would like to say. I personally believe, right, that when you're going to talk about human behavior, you must first establish what base or standard you're going to use to determine how humans should conduct themselves. Now, I know, based on what I have seen, a young person will grow up and they will have different experiences. And as such, they will develop what I call some core beliefs. Some people call it presuppositions, whatever you want to call it. But even in my life, based on experiences that I had over a period of time, I start to develop some core beliefs. And what I have found, in my case, most of the time my actions is determined by these core beliefs. As such, if I see certain things, most things, I filter them through these core beliefs that I have. So if I don't have a proper base or standard by which I will govern myself, you see, it could be a problem or not a problem. Because like I said, in my case, most of my actions is determined by these core beliefs that I hold. Now you will ask, how do people get these core beliefs? What I have seen mainly is that people will develop these core beliefs, as I said, based on experiences that they have, based on what they see in the society or the community that they live, and especially in these days through social media. And of course, there are other mediums as well. Well, I want to say that they learn most of these core beliefs. They learn most of these core beliefs. I want to agree that man is a sinner by birth, but remember, not everybody in the world believe that. So that's why I'm saying that most of what a man believes, he learn it slowly by what he see, what he hear, the people that he affiliate himself with, and those things. So, as such, especially the older people, have to be very, very careful how they conduct themselves before younger people, because they're looking and they're forming ideas and so on based on what they see. And sooner or later, these become their core beliefs. And then what happens now? They filter whatever they see or hear through these core beliefs. You see? So we have to be very, very careful. Sometimes we're just saying, oh, bring back the death penalty and all these things. But it's more than that. That is a quick fix. That is a quick fix. But it really takes time and some thoughtfulness. Really takes time and some thoughtfulness. And some good learning too. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, you can just come up with these quick fix and it's just going to, some magic is going to happen. People need to sit down and learn as much as they can so that when they're speaking, they can give proper information. So it's going to take some good sitting down, reading, learning as much as you can, so that when we teach these younger people, they can have balance. Not just get up and say, oh, bring back the death penalty and all those things. I wouldn't say no more for now, but I will just say again, you have to have a standard or a base up front before you start talking about other things. Good night.
Good night. Yes, I just wanted to with the point that the caller was making, the thesis of his argument can be found in the scriptures. He spoke about the belief, right? The belief system that man has. And it can be found in the Bible verse, in the book of Proverbs. As a man thinketh, so he is. So and that's in essence what I understand the caller to be saying. The way a person thinks, the book of Proverbs says, that's who he is. His thinking. And he pointed out, sometimes shaped by his experiences and also his environment. Yes, Mr. Stanley.
Look, we understand that, Webo. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. It is as simple as you look at your two hands. But you have hands. Sunday I came out of church and I went down to my mother's grave. I spoke based on what I believe. She didn't hear because she's dead. But I wish she had been alive because she would have seen the progress that we have made in Nevis. She would have seen where I have gotten from age 30
so when
to where I am.
When you spoke, what you said, knowing that she would not hear.
I said, Mom, I'm here, and good morning, and thank you for what you've done for me.
Okay. So that's what you said when you spoke.
And praise the Lord.
That's what you said when you spoke,
yes. Knowing
that she would not hear.
Well, again, that is
no,
my belief.
Right.
All
So
right?
that's, but I'm just, keep in mind that I'm slow. So I just, want you to bear with me. You said you spoke, knowing that she would not hear.
Physically, she's not here.
Okay, the question I wanted to ask you before I put the caller on, I wanted to point out, based on what Dr. Bartlett was saying when she made her presentation, she spoke about the different leaders or administrations or departments, referencing the police department, that in terms of strategy, they seem to have a 6, 8, whatever point plan. Correct, Dr. Bartlett? And you even said maybe yours might be how many?
Could add an extra 10.
Add an extra 10. So I was about to ask you, Mr. Stanley, how many points would your plan have in?
I'm not going down there anywhere.
You wouldn't have a plan.
Well, no, I have a plan.
But you would not tell me.
My plan is to say that we have a problem and we have to be pragmatic.
Okay.
We have to know.
But if you were asked to put it in points, like to point out the different various areas and so on, about how many points you think your plan will have?
Well, I'll probably give 5.
About 5. Naya, same question. If you had to put yours in...
That's a big question.
I know, and you didn't have time to prepare, yes. But...
It just might be 1 point plan.
You're right on target with me, because if I were to put it here, people would see that it says mine would be a 1 point plan. Now, the difference, we're on the same page with that, Naya, but let's see if we're on the same page of what that 1 point would be. So what would be your 1 point?
I wish we didn't get to that point. To eradicate crime. How?
Well, we're on the same page again.
Okay.
So my 1 point is solve the crime.
No, but the thing is, it's easy to say just solve the crime, but it's more complex than that, though.
No, but when you the point is, and I don't know if my Nye will be on the same page with me, is that I'll say we have a 1-point plan. We're going to get a thing solved. And you might do 25 things as a result, or steps, or whatever it is. You get it done. But all the people are interested in is that one thing.
Yeah, but that is the...
You agree with that, Stanley?
Well, we understand that, but...
Do you agree with that, Mr. Stanley?
I can tell you many roads in the same town, and therefore you would have more than one. So I'm coming back to my 5.
So you will do 5.
All right.
But you wouldn't get on
The
board.
ultimate thing.
So if Naya and I, you wouldn't get on board with our idea, just to have a 1 point. Just get it solved.
If that's your way of approaching...
So in operating a business, you've never had to say to an employee who keeps coming and complaining, Mr. Stanley, but, you know, been got enough of this, and, you know, and you never get to a stage where you say, listen to me, just get it done.
Success.
So you're on board with me and Naya now?
If you want to categorize it as such, go right ahead.
Okay, I think I need to go to Dr. Bartlett.
Well, I wanted to finish what I was
Let's
saying.
go to Dr. Bartlett, and
Go
then
ahead.
we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say some different things, and I think I might have missed out. One of the fundamental points I wanted to make is that I think in most societies you have different, dynamics playing at different times. And in a society where you find you have a lot of inequality, you find a lot of property crimes, you find a lot of people stealing things and stuff like that, then in a society where there's a perception that there's a lot of injustice, you find a lot of personal, and violent crimes happening. So I don't know, I'm not going to ask anybody to say the Lord's Prayer again and then get into trouble. But we need to try not to offend the people. It's just today I was telling one, the workers, well, it's not my employee, it's government employee, but I supervise this person. I said, try not, to offend the people. And when you do, and even sometimes when they offend you, try to apologize. Because I do that all the time. Somebody mash me and I just say, I'm so sorry for being in your way, because had I not been there, you might not have stepped on me. But I would not react violently, because over time I have grown into the kind of person I am now. I'm very giving as it relates to trying to have peace. Sometimes you have to give up your right to get peace. And that is what I find that we're not doing enough of. Everybody is at a point where we're highly charged. And the first offense, sometimes you think it's something small, and people get upset with you, and you're like, why, and there are a lot of things that, make people upset. Sometimes people leave home upset because maybe they just couldn't meet the rent or whatever the circumstances are. So we have a lot of issues to work through, but we have to get to a point where we, try to keep the peace, apologize sometimes even when you're right, but I wanted to say earlier that we need to get to the point of reconciliation. Men not going to forgive. But we need to reach to a point. I'm not asking for any truth and reconciliation, big, tribunal and them kind of things, But we need to reach to a point where you say, look, guys, we're at the point now. These are the sides that, that are in the fray right now. Let us just stop, Let us get a timeout, Whatever gone, that done gone. Let us put that behind us, and move forward. But we need somebody to be able to broker the peace. I don't know who that person is. Had I been in the trenches, I probably might be able to do that. I probably don't know. I see everybody as one. I don't know who is, on what side or whatever. But I've cautioned before, and I just want to reiterate that, because I don't think that, it should just, I shouldn't have it and go back home with it tonight. But what I really want to say is, I would have said before, sometimes men, and this is another statement that might be construed as being sexist, I've said before that men cannot part fights, A man come to part a fight and then he end up being a part of the fight. And I think we're seeing some of that being manifested now, because it's the ego, it's the male kind of thing. And we have to try to eliminate, and if I were in charge right now, one of the things I would want to eliminate is what we label things as, We have said within recent times that we have a war and crime. War have two sides, You have casualties on both sides. We have to tone down the rhetoric. We don't need to say we're in a war to fight crime. We need to remove war from our lexicon. We need to remove that. We're going to have to, say something nicer, something softer, something like a strategy to reduce crime or crime reduction strategy, something, but this war against crime is not helping because it adds, it's just the perception of things, like, okay, it's one side against the other side. Wherein we might be at the point now where we have had differences, but now we're at the point that we're trying to settle scores, and that is not good. We have to reach to a point of reconciliation. Forget the truth part. I don't want to know who would have done what when. It is not likely that we will be able to, we have to be pragmatic. It's not likely that we're going to be able to solve all these crimes that would have happened. It's not likely. In other places that have more resources, they're not solving more than 10% of their crimes, they're not in terms of, murders. America would quote statistics like there's 62% arrest, for any murder that happens, they have a 62%, a rate of, at least cancelling those things to say, well, okay, then we would have arrested somebody and charged the person. But it doesn't stay there, ultimately, if you don't have a conviction, you still have that person, going through the system and whatever. And what we need to remember as well, the state here is going to have to be paying for defending the same people who you bring to justice, because if they can't pay, the state has to provide for payment for the same services. All these lawyers that you think are queuing up, whoever the defendants are, if they decide I can't afford to pay, and whoever the lawyer is, by right he's entitled to that, right, Naya? So the state has to pay, and the state has been paying. So you don't just bring somebody and charge them and don't have the requisite, evidence to, for a conviction. And so that's why the conviction rate is as low as it is, I would imagine. And plus you have people who are seeing things and just not saying things, and that is, like I said, is not a phenomenon that is unique to us in St. Kitts Nevis. All over the world you go, people can't convict because what? They just do not have the evidence, and they don't have the witnesses. Even if the people see, they don't see. They hear, they hear. So if we don't get to the point where we can reconcile, I think that, all would be lost for us.
Well,
Naya.
Thanks to Pat. I thought you were going to say you're going to eliminate man, but I'm happy that you didn't. But the point I wanted to make, Rebel, the idea about the army is going to be assisting the police is a bit worrying to me. I know it is for our safety and security. Sometimes you see the army, individuals from the army with some big guns going through and through the crowd and so forth during culture and different times. But Webo, it looks like we're trying to fight fire here with fire. And the presence of big guns is not something that was common among us yesterday or year before, or 5-10 years ago, but it is now, and of course, it is because of the escalating crime. But I'm not sure if or to what extent the police is going to be assisting, the army is going to be assisting the police. Sometimes the police need to have an approach which sometimes the army doesn't have. I'm of the opinion, and through my little experience, realize that the army people are very quick to brandish their guns. They're very harsh. I've been out one evening and I see them dealing with an individual and his girlfriend, and I'm, wow. And I'm saying, if that's the approach they're coming with, saying that they're going to be assisting the police, it's very worrying, because we are building a coarse society. I mean, gun to some is power. To many people is power. To countries, weapons are power. And to individual weapons are power, and sometimes people just, sometimes you walk with a gun, your gun into town, and you're the one end up get killed. Simply because you feel that way about yourself because you have a gun and you make foolish decisions. I'm not too sure if it's a good thing to have the army assisting the police. And I am not going to be absolute about this, but I think police are differently trained. And as Pat was saying, yes, you have to have an appeasing approach sometimes, fighting fire with fire. The people might get caught in the crossfire, maybe not in a physical sense where where bullets flying from here to there and people get caught up. But I think the coarseness of the society, this idea about war on crime, I don't think it is going down quite well in terms of an approach, really. Criminals are strong. Criminals are armed. Criminals, and the police know the criminal have bigger gun than them sometimes. We don't want to see that kind of thing being the norm, whereby, you know, so much gun is being brandished around, you know, and it speaks volume, really, because, as I say, for some reason, I don't know if the individuals are following the nations or what, but arms, guns, you know, somehow bring that sense of power. And I'm very worried about it because, again, most importantly, Webo, is the coarseness of these individuals. From my experience, they approach things differently, and I am not sure if we are really ready for a coarsened society or one with a more appeasing approach, whereby we try to really talk to people and try to be inclusive in our whole approach to not just the crime thing, but also to employment and institutionalize things, you know, because I say there are many people out there feel left out of the equation, you know. There's a vexation out there, Webo. There's a vexation out there, and I'm not saying that that is sufficient justification for crime, but there's a vexation out there. Pat spoke of the inequalities, and yes, it does exist in a big way, and there are other surrounding circumstances. I don't know how much people are returning now. People have been to jail in America. I don't know how much people Trump is sending back. Mr. Stanley, I'm not sure, as being a president, one of the president men's. Maybe can comment on that. But I know during the Obama days, it was something that was happening. And to be quite honest, I know one or two of them who come back here and practice the same thing that was they were in prison, and they're gone. They've been killed. So, Webo, a coarser society? No. A more pleasing approach? Yes. Because there are things that these people would like to talk about and to talk to people in authority about, people who probably have, you know, some means and ways of impacting on them in terms of improving their life and giving them more reasons to stay alive, giving them more reasons to stay sober and not actually want to kill and rob and so forth. Because I find this thing is very consuming. I think when you kill one man, it's easier to kill 2 and 3. And therefore, you know, really and truly, Webo, we can only make all these suggestions, but a coarser society is a no-no for me, personally. I want peace.
Edric.
Webo, we can speak all evening, but we have to face reality. Our society...
Let me take this, Edric. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yeah, Mr. Hobart, I don't really like to call back, but I call back again. I want to agree with what Pat and Naya is saying, and in particular, especially what Naya was just speaking to. I see the police role as, from what I have gathered over the years, trying as much as possible to deter crime and also to help to solve crime. I don't see that the Army has that same role. To me, the Army role is more to put down any uprising, whether it be crime or what. But their objective is to put it down and to use force and put it down. As such, the Army approach is going to be completely different to the police.
Caller, keeping in mind, might I just inform you
Yes.
that when they have been seconded, so to speak, they were assigned the roles or the duties or the approach that police do.
Okay, let's hope that is so.
Well, that is what is stated. Not, I'm just giving information.
Yeah, but I'm
Yes.
sure you will agree with me.
Yes,
To an extent what I'm saying,
I
though.
absolutely see the point that you're making.
Uh-huh.
But in the interest of informing the population, it is necessary for me to
All
point
right.
that out.
Okay, yeah.
It's
But
continue.
another point again that Naya just brought out again and Pat bringing out again is the injustices, the unfairness and so on that is going on in the society. That also is kind of helping to fuel crime. Another thing again, when you have all these law enforcement bodies, right, brandishing all these weapons all over the country, it kind of gives a tone of a weaponized country. And you and I know that human behavior is such. If I see my neighbors around me with guns and so on, I kind of want to have a gun myself too. Mind you, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be arm and so on. But the point that Naya is making is a valid point. It seems to me like we are coming to be now a weaponized country. And I feel that some people are saying, well, a big percentage of the people is walking up and down here with gun all around me. I might as well get my own. Good night.
Good night. Mr. Stanley?
Well, I sometimes listen to people who are supposed to be intelligent, and when they talk hogwash, it really ticks me off. We are people, and we can learn. Human behavior is as such that it is taught, it is learned, and if you are placed in the role as an army personnel, but must do police duties, they're not going to just take you and place you into that role of police duty without reorientating you with reference to your new role. The caller is a trainer. He gets people who may have known nothing about the construction industry, but he teaches them from where he picked them up, refine them, and ultimately bring them into the trade industry. The same process must be used to incorporate the army into the police.
But that is not what is happening, though.
And thus, based on where we are, the police seemingly needs help because they have always been out there asking for more people to join the police force. I have heard it myself. And as a result, if they cannot find the bodies to fill these roles, and you've got a force that is already military in training, as the case might be with the paramilitary, the police, and military in training, then it is necessary for you to take these personnel and reorientate them and induct them into the police to get the counts, to get the manpower in order for us to attempt to bring a handle on this menace. So I don't understand when people with a certain level of intelligence cannot come to grips with the reality as to what the purpose is, the defined purpose. So I'm saying now that it is as such The Army realizes its role. We in the community realize that fellas out there who are bad people and will attempt to take on the police and the Army together. And therefore you're going to send the Army out there with their hands tied behind their back? I mean, this is hogwash. You have to be able to demonstrate that you are in charge. And if you are going out with your hands tied behind your back, no weaponry, and people out there with bigger guns, as Naya said, well, how could you attempt to negate that reality? The Army is the Army, the police is the police. We remember years ago when the police weren't carrying guns. Why are they carrying it now? Because there are people out there with bigger guns than the police. So, let us begin to face reality. Use our intellect to understand how our society has been predicated. And it has moved now from a docile society to a militant society. And thus you have to be able to understand those harsh realities. We as people, when we grew up as kids, we saw police. And the next thing we want to do, we want to run because they're authority. Now people, like I said, there's a vexation in the society. There are people who don't listen and they don't learn and they get lazy. And then they become on the fringes and they do things that warrants a certain way of controlling or governing, as the case might be. So why are we attempting to make apologies for those who didn't listen, didn't learn, don't want to follow orders, don't respect authority, and we go from the microphone radio, listen, sometimes we got to shut off some of these mics when people start talking foolishness. You have to govern, and you have to show authority in a place where people become militant.
Okay, let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, on May 25th this year, I was on my way home, about less than 100 yards from my entrance. Police stopped me and told me to turn around. I said, I can't turn around. My house is right here. Anyhow, we argued for 2 minutes, and then he slapped me because I wouldn't move my car. A sergeant in the police force, just like that, slapped me upside my face. So if a sergeant can do that for not somebody not turning around their car.
He did what?
He slapped me in my face, and I went to the hospital, made a report. Yeah. Because I didn't want to turn around my car. He reached inside my driver's side and blam. A sergeant on the police force.
Where you went and made a report, you said?
Yeah, I went to hospital.
To the hospital.
So the face was still red and hot. I went to hospital, let the doctor look at it, and then I went to the report to the police station, made a report, and the police down there observed, and on her notes she saw the redness on my face and slightly swollen, you know, and the second day I come match the inspector for police, what do they call it, police behavior. 2 months later, he comes by and has a conversation with me. I see my lawyer since then, but I haven't. I was trying to decide whether I should turn the other cheek or not. But everybody says, man, bring the guy. But anyhow, just to say that if a police sergeant can lose control and slap somebody who's old enough to be his daddy for not turning around the car, well, and these guys are walking, both Red Cross, beat guns, and somebody gets on their nerves. No telling what they can do. All I'm just saying to say is that there's a lot of lack of control here, a lot of lack of discipline, and I don't trust anybody in these parts with guns. That's all.
All right, thank you.
But it is just the point that I was making.
That police was not properly trained. He wasn't properly trained.
But putting that aside, Stanley, what you need to recognize is that in this community you have people who, whether it is perceived or it is real, injustices occur and continue to occur. And you can't, you know, like my husband said, please don't say too much time.
That police was not properly trained. And what I'm saying is, tolerance is something that you have to learn. And until you learn tolerance, you must not be given a badge or a weapon or put in a position of authority where you're going to misuse your authority. And you cannot put that label on all the police personnel. Although we understand how the organization thinks, because they're supposed to be the persons or the department that brings about order, that maintains order. And if that's the case, then some who are not properly trained should never be given the authority to be let loose in the community. Because that person who called could have been a different type of thinking person. And from the time they are given an order that seems to be offensive, they could react. And it would have been a different matter. Because you could have had casualties. But what I'm saying to you is, we are a people, we listen, we learn, and there are times when you have to obey, and there are times when you have to state your case in terms of your rights. I mean, I was stopped at one point, and when I was asked, show identification, I said, I know my rights. And when I began to let them know that I know my rights, they backed off. There are times...
And by way of education, what was your right in that scenario?
You can ask me my name, but what is the basis for you asking my name? And I had it simply because there were two white policemen. And the color of my skin, obviously, not white. And based on where I was...
Oh, that happened in another jurisdiction?
Another jurisdiction. But that organization operates the same way worldwide.
Yeah. So, but I'm interested...
This particular case with this,
yes,
with the caller...
No, the case with you
yes.
is intriguing. So could continue... Give me some more details about
well,
it.
Eventually, after I told them I know my rights, they asked me to show identification, and I deliberately showed them something that would cause them to be upset.
Which was one?
Well, I wouldn't mention it on the radio, but you can imagine what it might be.
No, but that's why I asked you, because I can't imagine.
So I'm just saying to you, because they truly wanted to do what they wanted to do. But eventually they left me alone.
And you told them you know your rights?
Oh, yes.
And after that one?
They left me alone. After I told them I know my rights, they asked me to show identification. I showed them identification. And then they went on to something else after I showed it, because it was rather offensive. And when I told them, find it.
Okay, you said use my imagination.
Yes.
Use
the imagination,
but that's what I'm doing. Could it have been you identified yourself to them as a Republican?
Oh, no. No, not at all. That would have, that might have, because you are now projecting a certain level of authority and power. You understand?
Yes.
If somebody decides to associate himself with President Obama, you know President Obama? Man, I could make a telephone call now to President Obama.
So that's why you're...
I'm just saying to you.
I understand. Yeah. I understand. So that's why you're sticking with Trump.
Oh, well, I mean, it's already
it's power.
Moment. It's already really a nice moment.
Okay. Now anyway, you wanted to say something.
Anyway, I was just saying that...
What the caller spoke of is something that happened all the time, really. And that's the point I was trying to make, you know. I mean, Stanley is arguing with himself about something, you know, talking about the army is trained to do the police work, and we're dealing with human beings, and we're dealing with a reactionary force, because that's what it is. And as I said, to my experience, they are not very, their approach are not appeasing. They seems to be easily ready to pull their gun, you know. I don't want to get into it, but I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to a guy who almost had the same...
Okay, Naya, could I just take this? Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening.
Well, good
Yes, you're on the air, could you go ahead?
Well, but two things I just want to mention real quick in reference to what Stanley said earlier in reference to the police officer was not properly trained. I disagree with Mr. Stanley on that. The officer was properly trained, but somewhere along the line he deviated from his training and just wanting to do his own thing. But the officer was properly trained. You can't become an officer unless you're properly trained. You have to pass certain qualifications, certain things to be given a badge, a gun, or whatever certification is required. So you must be properly trained. But somewhere along the line, he or she deviated from his or her proper training that was once given upon that person. And secondly, in concerning the crime, clearly in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 11 in the Bible, whenever sentence is not carried out on evil work, the hearts of men are going to continue to do wicked stuff and evil stuff. I'm all for the death penalty. Anytime sentence, judgment, justice is not carried out on things that are done wrong in the nation, people are going to continue in blissful ignorance to do wicked stuff. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. The caller is gone, but just wanted to ask him a rhetorical question. The quotation that he made from the Bible, though, I notice, I pay a lot of attention to what people don't say. He didn't say anything about the death penalty. He said that anyhow, something is not, you get what I'm saying, right? Okay, but just because, you know, yes, Mr. Stanley.
Well, I wanted to find out if this person who just called is closely related to me. But if that person, please call back.
In thinking?
No, not thinking. In terms of association. Anyhow.
Okay, but if they're closely related to you,
no, associated.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, because I was thinking the same thing, but you probably might have been wondering it based on bloodline and genetics.
No.
But I was thinking about it in terms of thinking and philosophy.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to make one comment.
Yes.
You would find that there are a lot of applications for firearm licenses, and the department has declined quite a number of them for different reasons. But they can't predict what you as a police officer going to do at certain times. So even though you might be, quote unquote, properly trained, depending on your mood or mode, you can take certain actions that are not consistent with your training.
Okay, let's go to Naya.
Surely so. That happens all the time, and that's a bad thing, really. A police officer who is there to really, I mean, execute the law should be very mindful as to the extent, or you know, to you know, there's something that called okay, I won't get into that. But yes, too often I've heard of bad experiences. You know, the gentleman who gets slapped in the car. Yes, so just the other month I spoke to my friend. He's down Hanley's Road selling his drinks. local drinks that he makes, and police officers roll up on him, want to search him. The first thing they do, they bust a slap in his face, as if they're introducing themselves by doing that. Young guy, just had to take it. And ironically, I was talking about a police who I think act a bit out of his authority and quite a name brand amongst some people, because he harasses a lot of people. And then he tell me his story, and very same police officer. But I am not here to really put too much of a point my fingers on police officers and what they're doing. I would like them to be mindful of their responsibility and the extent of their responsibility, and also the army. So, I mean, when Mr. Stanley talking about turn off the mic and intelligent people talking hogwash, I don't really know what he's on about, really. But this is the nature of the show, Webo, because, today I was talking to some friends who listen to the show very well, very, very often, and one of them said to me, "Boy, Mr. Stanley, every time I hear him, he make me go to sleep." And the other one said, "Boy, Stanley, who keep me awake?" And that is the same conversation. So I'm saying all this to say, yes, there are going to be conflicting opinions here and there, and to make reference to.
And also probing questions. So let me ask one now. You said your friend.
A group of guys.
Right. They were making their drinks.
Oh, that particular individual was selling his drink.
His local drink.
Local drinks, yes. Down Hanley's Road.
Okay. You know what the local drink was?
Yeah, yes.
What it was?
He make oats, power up drink.
Just checking.
Food drinks.
Yeah, I was just checking.
Food drinks, really.
But
the police move on him again because he's a Rastafarian. And they have their suspiciousness sometimes. But this is the approach.
Okay. You see, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. When you ask probing questions, you get more.
Yeah, they have their suspicions, no doubt. They always have their suspicions.
That.
And nothing is wrong with that.
No, okay.
They are police officers. But the approach, why introduce, themselves to him by slapping him? As if that's the way. First, I'm going to dehumanize you, and then I'm going to deal with you. These are the things that makes a society, and people in the society
violent.
Mm-hmm. And to me, this whole approach, honestly, I mean, if the police need more guys, I could understand that. But I believe the introduction of the army into the police, it's because it brings more power, not in numbers, but in terms of weaponry. And the psychic of the people would be such that they would hope that they would come around to do better. But be careful with that. It can be worse.
Yeah, because you can't go on terrorizing ordinary citizens and then expect that you would have any kind of collaboration as it relates to, this effort against crime. And I'm being very careful. Don't want to say this war against crime.
Yeah, but the other thing I would like to interject here though is that because I've been around for a while and I've done this thing for longer than even some people who are listening have been born. It's a fascinating thing to get two sides of a story, especially when you're very persuaded by one.
Oh, yes.
Because yes. I'm not going to suggest that the stories that we just hear, which are very appealing and gets one very emotional, are not true. But I almost can tell you with a certain degree of certainty that if you were to get the other side, you would not believe it's the same story.
But there's no justification for getting physical with people. I don't think
right, but the point that I'm making is
I got your point.
The point that and you see that is why I have to interject here, because if you don't, it would appear as if it is what it.
I understand. I totally understand.
But if you have enough people with these stories out, and enough of these people in the community who feel that they have been treated unfairly, you can see why crime is not going to go down anytime soon.
The only thing I would add there is that when I was growing up, I heard a saying, 60 million Frenchmen cannot be wrong. And then I heard a discussion one time, and then somebody said, but there can be. And then I began to think, so if a person tells a story and 60 million people repeats it, that does not automatically mean that the story is correct. Right, Mr. Stanley?
That's quite true.
Okay.
Weber was trying to say that we have a society, and those people who feel terrorized, are they being shortchanged? Are they benefiting? Because I would say this. I think the army and the police, however they have brought them together, should be a positive thing for the good of the nation and its peoples. Some people would see it as rather being militarized, terrorized, as the case might be. But let's take a step backward. Those people who truly have nothing to hide, nothing to fear, and the army comes around, the police comes, they have no right to offend you, slap you. I mean, they have in fact violated your civil rights. But those who truly would categorize the police as a terror organization or the police army, then let us ask ourselves, is it a plus or a minus for us? Now, those who are truly out there doing nefarious things, they would see the police and the army as being militarized and being in the mode of terrorizing them. But again, most of us, we need the army, we need the police. And whatever manpower we can beef up the police force with, let us embrace it. It is for the good of the nation and all its peoples.
Well, I can only embrace that, when it is towards good. If it is not bringing us the kind of results that we need to reconsider, we need to regroup, and we need to re-strategize.
Okay, so who's
how are we going to regroup and re-strategize? What I'm saying to you is that
Stanley, that was not directed at the statement you necessarily made.
No, I'm just saying we need to harness this problem, and it is evading us.
And the strategy that has been employed up to
and
now
what I'm
has
saying
not
to
worked.
you is, we've got the minds that could harness this problem, but the will is not there. We lack the will for the implementation of the strategy to bring about the solution.
You just disconnected me.
We lack the will, Weber.
You have the minds. You have the minds. But the minds don't have the will?
Those who have the power to execute what's supposed to be executed, to bring about the solution, lack the will.
But they have the minds.
The minds are here, yes.
Okay, so in other words...
Those who killed and they're already on death row, let's finish the task and send the right message to those who are attempting to follow the road and get on to death row. All the stops that I mentioned in the process. We understand the process. And that journey begins with somebody doing something that is wrong. And ultimately, the few who are caught and they wind up The one up on death row.
So is it fair to conclude from your argument that you will not be able to do those steps that Naya point out unless you do the last step? So
Well, that is somewhat counterproductive based on what, if I understand you correctly.
But let me ask.
Some who are already on death row.
But might I ask?
Finish them.
But might I ask Dr. Bartlett, since she's one of the minds. Dr. Bartlett, is that not a logical deduction from his argument?
I just sometimes get disconnected, so I don't know.
If you got disconnected too.
Long time.
Naya, ain't that a logical conclusion from Edric's argument?
Can you repeat it, please?
It seems to be suggesting that the end part component of the process, if you don't implement that, you won't be able to get the beginning process, yes. So he's saying that implement the end process. In other words, let's start at point 10 and then come to point 1.
Okay, I'm being a judge here, and I give Edric that case.
That's the last word.
I give Edric that case.
From Conrad Naya Liver. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening for On the Mark at 8 o'clock. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, taught that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers. With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VO.